Mr. Ahmed, welcome.
Thank you.
How will the Egyptian economy be affected by recent developments?
The recent popular protests in Egypt will definitely have a short-term economic cost. In particular, we will see tourism and investment going down. And certainly the 5.5% growth rate that we saw in the last two quarters of 2010 will likely be considerably lower in the next 6 months or so while the situation stabilizes. Having said that, though, I think it's very important to also recognize that by addressing the constraints that have held back the broad inclusive sharing of growth in Egypt in the past, constraints like transparency, constraints like improved governance, more focus on sharing the benefits of reform, this will create a greater degree of dynamism and of participation in economic reform, and could lay the foundations for sustained, faster reform, growth, and improvement in the living standards of ordinary people throughout Egypt.
And what can the IMF do to help?
The responsibility and the ownership for what needs to be done to improve living standards in Egypt, to address the challenges that now face them, lies first and foremost with the Egyptian government and with the Egyptian people. The role of the IMF is to support this process by providing the best of the cross-country experience that comes from our global membership of 187 countries, by being able to share how other countries have been able to address similar challenges. We provide policy advice, technical assistance, and we're doing that now. Beyond that, if at some point the Egyptian authorities feel that financial support from the IMF be a useful additional cushion for their external reserves, then that's something the IMF would be ready to consider, as it would for all its members. But as of now, the Egyptian authorities have not indicated that they see a need for financial support, and certainly their reserve position is strong, and so our current focus is very much on policy advice and on technical assistance.
And what will be the regional economic impact of the events in Tunisia and Egypt?
What we're seeing in a number of countries in the region is some of the same pressures, the pressures that come from rising food and fuel prices, the pressures that come from high levels of unemployment, particularly amongst young people. And we've also seen a number of governments respond to these pressures, in some cases preemptively, by providing greater degree of subsidies for food prices, by providing more public sector jobs, by raising salaries. And I think all of these are measures that in the first instance will help to alleviate the impact of the current global trends on populations throughout the region. At the same time, this also adds to the fiscal burden going forward. And some of these countries already have strained fiscal situations. So this raises the urgency of trying to develop modern, fairer and more permanent systems of social protection that will ensure that poor people are protected. The IMF believes strongly that the government should provide protection and support for the poorest people in society, but it does so in a more efficient way so that the same amount of resources are targeted on those who need them most, rather than spent across the board on products that are consumed by rich and poor alike.
Mr. Ahmed, thank you.
Thank you.